Hello and welcome to episode number 15
Yes.
of the Marriage Coach Podcast, where we are here to help you take your relationship from surviving to thriving.
Today on the Marriage Coach Podcast, we're going to be discussing how to become a better listener.
Yes, so we were having a conversation. We fall short at in relationships or sometime in understanding what someone is trying to say to us.
Yeah.
We have a listening problem. That many times in relationships, we have a listening problem.
Right. I mean, I remember at times, it happens a lot.
Absolutely.
Sometimes, we get in the point, like even in our marriage, we get to a point where I'm trying to get my point across. And then in the midst of me getting my point across, I have to be reminded that I need to understand before being understood. And sometimes that's an issue that I know I struggle with. As human beings, we want to get our point across before we in the situation or in the predicament to understand somebody else's point of view.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the thing that I was thinking about when we talked about this was the fact that we always tell people communication is key. Communication is key.
Yeah.
Every relationship blog, every relationship podcast, every relationship book, everything on marriage, relationship, dating, all of that says communication is key.
Yeah.
What good is your communication skills if the person that you're speaking to is not understanding what you're saying or not listening? That's what I want to say. If the person that you're speaking to is not listening, so you have great communication skills, but the receiver is not listening to what you're saying. And that's a problem, because what I have struggled with is you could be speaking to me, and what I'm waiting on is I'm waiting on that pause so I can say what I want to say. I'm waiting on that pause so I can say, no, that's not what happened, or whatever. So I'm not doing what you just said.
You're not even listening.
I'm not listening. I'm not attempting to understand, to be understood. I'm not attempting to let you know that I hear you and I'm listening to you. I'm just like, as soon as you give me a break, as soon as you take a breath, I'm about to give it to you. And sometimes that could be a problem for us with this, snapback thing. This person say something, I'm gonna say something back. And sometimes I'm talking at the same time when you're talking.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. Even in a relationship, you have to, because it's a thing. I want you to know how I feel. You want me to know how you feel. And everybody, I just want to be understood.
Everybody wants to be understood.
And the truth of the matter is, I may be wrong, but let me complete what I'm saying before you even say something. Just give me a consideration, because sometimes things can happen in relationship where it's like, okay, you're listening or I'm talking, but your feedback that you're giving me, the way you explain it back to me, you basically let me know I'm not really hearing anything you have to say. I could be totally wrong with what I'm saying, but the fact of you not even listening or not even giving my thought a chance, that can be definitely an issue.
And this is the thing that's on the flip side. When we are speaking or when we have spoken and you're listening to me and you're letting me get it all out, sometimes in the middle of me getting it out, I'll understand myself. Oh, wait a minute, I'm thinking about that wrong. Never mind, scratch that, I'm wrong. But if there was not that, okay, I'm attentively listening, explain to me what you're saying, then I would have never came to the conclusion that, oh, wait a minute. Now I'm wrong about that. That's not how they went. Or no, my thought process was going to the left. You're right. And you haven't even said nothing, and you're right. Because talking it out or letting a person get it all the way out, if they are incorrect, sometimes letting them get it all the way out, they see themselves that they're right. But if that doesn't happen, then they can't get it out. They can't get it all out, and they can't see where they were wrong. And if you jump and clap back, or you talking before they finish talking because you're not listening, then they don't even see, they didn't get to talk it out loud to see that they were wrong. And the other thing that I was thinking about is it came to me because I was having a conversation with a very good friend. We were talking, and both of us were saying good things. Both of us were saying the right things, but we were talking many times overlapping each other. So I'd have to say that again, or she'd have to say that again. And it's because you can't get a clear understanding of what that person is saying because you're not listening. You're trying to finish the sentence for them, or you think you know where they're going, or you think you know what they mean. And whatever it is, until you let them say what they're saying, you can't get a clear understanding. So then what became important to me as we talked about this conversation was these two things work together. The communication and listening have to work together. So you can have good communication. And so good communication is sending and receiving, speaking and listening, listening and hearing, because you can have all of this noise going on, but what is it that you're listening to? What is it that you're giving attention to? The definition for listening was to give attention to a sound or something. So when I'm listening to you, I'm giving attention to what it is that you're saying. I'm giving attention to what it is you're sharing with me. I'm giving attention to what it is you're informing me of. I'm giving attention to what it is that you are communicating. So that is important. And so we have to know these things are, these two things are like a couple: communication, listening. Listening is a part of communication. You cannot communicate with someone that's not listening.
3 points we're going to share with you all. What's the first point on today?
The first point on today is to let your guards down.
Let your guards down. Explain that.
So when you're talking to another person, your significant other, your spouse, your child, we always say, you can use this for everybody. When you're talking to someone, when you're communicating, whether it's just a regular dialogue, whether they're sharing their feelings, whether there's a confusion, whether there's a conflict, whatever it is, let your guard down. Lay aside your agenda. Lay aside your own views. Lay aside your version of what happened or what's being said. Lay that aside just for the sake of laying it aside so that I can hear you. What I'm doing is becoming a better listener. Let me not think about my view. Let me not think about my side or what I feel that my point is or what I want to prove to you. Right now, in this very moment, I'm letting that down, because our guards are typically up when when there's a conflict or when we want somebody to understand us and we feel like they're not. So our guards go up. But we're saying today, the first step is let your guard down.
Yeah. And the thing about putting your guards up, I mean, when you really think about it, I mean, I know I'm talking, sometimes this can go way back, in DNA and in our bloodline and our families of the reason why we have our guards up anyway. So, I mean, we have to really be careful, to just keep those guards down, because here's the thing. Let's say somewhere in my life, I was offended. I had some situation that happened in my life, in my childhood, when I was 8 years old, when I was 5 years old. And let's say because of that situation, I tend to put my guards up in certain situations. The defense mechanism come up, all the defensive walls come up, and I'm not trying to hear anything. So now here I am married to you, and I am accustomed and I'm used to having these guards up, and they automatic. It's like my program is for the guards to come up. But now I'm married, and I'm married to somebody I'm supposed to be giving myself to. That we're supposed to, two people becoming one. And so now here I am, I have this guard up, and mentally I haven't been reprogrammed. Mentally, I haven't been reprogrammed because I haven't dealt with that situation that have me having the guards up in the first place. So I have to let that guard down. And first of all, you have to find out, why is this guard coming up? Deal with that so you can work on increasing your marriage to becoming a better listener. But you don't want to listen to somebody else. So we have to listen and make sure we keep these guards down, because it don't just affect us in our marriage, but it affects us in every area of our lives.
Absolutely. Communicating with someone, or when someone's communicating with us, we have a guard up because we're not ready to deal with what is us. We're not ready to necessarily receive what we need to work on or what we need to fix. But it's important that you let that guard down, because if you don't let that guard down, even though you feel like you're not ready to receive, or you don't want to hear what they're saying or whatever, it could be the thing that turn you around. It could be the thing that turn your relationship around. It could be the one thing that make you a better person, just for you letting your guard down and listening.
And you said receive. I mean, I want us to think about this. Really think about this. Receive. If you have your guards up for whatever reason, sometimes you can't even receive what you need to receive.
Wow.
You can't even receive. I'm talking something that will take you to your next level in relationships, in your marriage, in your communication, in your leadership as a parent. Because you have the guard up, you can't even receive what you need for the next season of your life. So I want you to listen to me. Listen to me. You have to find out why I have this guard up. Find out why am I always getting offended? I'm offended by it. Every time somebody says something, I'm always offended. Why? Why is this happening? Why is this happening? And work on that so you can get what you need. Because that's things, I mean, we blame people. I mean, man, I've heard people blame God for so much stuff. Oh, man, I haven't got to this next level. Oh, man, God, why with this, why that? And the truth of the matter is you had a guard up when you should have had it down. You should have been listening when you was running your mouth. You should have been listening when you was offended. You know, so, I mean, we have to really be careful with this. Even in our marriages, that's marriage has been destroyed just because you won't listen, because you're putting the guard up for your own reason. And you can't get what you need because of the guard.
Right. You're missing out on so much. You're missing out on constructive criticism is criticism, but it comes to make you better. It's coming to shine light on the cracks that's in the corner, on the dust and the cobwebs that's building up in the situation. And I'm using that, metaphorically. It comes to shine a light on what needs your attention. So it's important to listen. I know for a fact, because of experience, letting your guard down is not easy. It's not always easy. It's not easy to receive constructive criticism.
I'm glad you brought that up.
It's not easy to receive constructive criticism. It's not easy to be told, listen, this is how you did, this is what happened, and this is how this made me feel. It's not easy to hear your spouse say something that pointing out something that you may do wrong. It's not easy to hear your spouse say they're not happy with something. It's not easy to hear criticism, constructive criticism, but it is necessary. It's not easy, but it's necessary.
And this is the thing, you said it's not easy, and you're totally correct. But this is the thing, it's not easy because you haven't done it. It's like building the muscle. It's like building the muscle. The more you work that muscle, the stronger it gets. And you will be surprised and amazed. I mean, just giving it a chance and just really just working that muscle, to let that guard down and holding that thing down so you won't have to. The first thing, it doesn't matter what it is, whatever change you're trying to make in your life, in your mind, in your character, it's always hard when you start. And this is the thing for the spouse, husband, wife, whoever dealing with this, whoever has a guard up, I want you to have grace for your spouse. Have grace for your spouse, because the truth of the matter is we're human. Have grace for them. Love them in spite of. Build them up. Help them out. Don't just judge so quickly and be like, oh, man, they said on the podcast that we supposed to do this, and here you are, you messed up, and you're doing the same thing. Give it a chance. Bring it up and address it. But here it is. You have to work together. So have some grace.
What I hear you saying right now is, if you are a spouse, if I'm a spouse and my significant other, or if I'm dating or whatever, whoever it is, and I see that they have their guard up every time we try to talk about this, or they have their guard up when we face this situation, to have some grace for them.
Exactly.
Okay. And I just wanted to make sure that we were clear about that, so that everybody understood exactly what you were saying.
And before we move on to the next thing with the guard, because it's something that happened in our marriage, and I told you this phrase, and it's still a blessing to the day. I want you to reassure,
remind them,
and remind your spouse and said, I am not your enemy. So number one is let your guard down. What is number two?
Number two is let them speak freely.
Okay, explain that.
You have to listen to what's being said and allow the significant other, allow the other person to speak freely. Let them say what needs to be said. Let them get it all out. Let them express to you what they are feeling, what they want to share, what they are trying to get you to see what they want. Let them share their perspective. Let them speak freely. Freely meaning I don't have to be guarded by what I'm about to say. You know, they can, you know, how they begin is that's a whole nother podcast. But, you know, like I don't have to, I'm trying to share something with you that's very important to me and I can't speak freely. I gotta tiptoe around things because I don't want to say this one third word that's going to tip you off. I don't want to do this one thing that's going to throw you off and you discombobulated. Your significant other needs to know that they can speak freely. They need to know that they can share freely what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and that you are going to give them the opportunity to do that. And also allowing somebody to speak freely is don't allow me to say something and then later on there's backlash for it. Don't allow me to say something and then you telling me I can speak to you openly and freely, but 3 months from now when you pouring cereal, you keep throwing it out. Yeah, like you said, such and such, or yeah, you such and such, or yeah, you feeling left alone or whatever. Allow people we're in relationship with the opportunity to speak freely.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing with speaking freely, I mean, oftentimes it's the reason why it's hard for us to allow somebody to speak freely because of our insecurity. Mm-hmm. You know, if it's something, for example, if it's something about, let's say, something sex or something like that, if you have an insecurity in that area, you know, you're not going to receive and allow the person to speak freely. And so now you have a whole nother issue. Somebody's kind of playing a guessing game, you know, and what you like and what you don't like, and you can't speak freely because the last time they were offended because you spoke freely. So you have to allow your spouse, allow them to speak freely. The way you allow them to speak freely is how you respond to it. At the end of the day, it's your response that's telling them, can I speak freely or can I not?
Absolutely. How you responded the last time creates a safe space or an unsafe space.
Yeah,
how you responded when I told you something difficult before says that I can speak freely or I can't. Yeah. So really and truthfully, that you letting them speak freely starts way before the conversation that you're currently trying to have with them. You're setting a foundation for them to know that they can always speak to you freely, that they can always, I like to think of it as them being able to be naked with you.
Would you look at it as in the area of trust?
Yes. It definitely falls in the area of trust. It's me knowing that I can, and I say be naked with you because to me being naked means that I don't have to cover up what I want to say. I don't have to cover up what I'm feeling. I don't have to cover up what I'm trying to share with you. I don't have to cover up. I can be real with you and freely about my insecurities. I can be real with you and open and honest and freely speak about my whatever it is, my fault, my shame, my whatever it may be. It's me being able to trust that I can share that with you, that I can say that with you, that I can say it to you, and that it's not going to come back on me, that you're not going to start feeling some type of way because I said it, that you're not going to be upset, that you're not going to withdraw from me. So it's this letting them speak freely is very, it very much starts before the actual conversation that you're trying to have.
It all boils down to, can I trust you to tell you the truth? Can I trust you to tell you the truth? All right, so number 2, let them speak freely. What's number 3?
Number 3 is let them finish talking.
Okay, unpack that.
You know, sometimes you're talking to someone or someone is speaking to you, and the moment they take a breath, you responding. The moment they take a slight pause, you jump in. You start analyzing. You start giving your opinion. You start giving your thoughts. You start, well, you said this, but this and that. No, we're talking about this. And this is a technique. Wait for the silence. They're talking, wait for the silence. Wait for that moment of silence. And I don't mean the same second that I just talked about, oh, they took a breath. No, I mean wait. And then wait a little bit more. Sometimes you can even put into action of letting them ask you, do you have any input? Okay, this is what, is there
I'm
anything
laughing.
you want to say?
Is that what you do with me? I know a lot of times, sometimes I'm talking and you get to the point where you're like super silent. And then it's like, did you hear what you hear me? And you're like, yeah, you finished?
And it's because of what I just said earlier. I realized, and I started doing that because I have conversations, and I'm excited when we have a conversation. Just like I was just talking about the conversation I had with a female friend on the phone. Right. We're excited, and I realized that when it's something of great value, if I don't contain myself and just be quiet and wait till you say, you get it? Or you'll say, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or you hear me?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I'm listening. You finished?
That's almost every conversation.
Yeah, and I'm like, you finished? Yeah. And when you say, yeah, I'm finished, or you may say to me, what's your thoughts?
Thought? Right.
What's your thought? Yeah, what's your thought? You got any thoughts? It's ringing and when you say that to me, now I know, because I've had time to listen to what you're saying. I'm really listening, and this is good, and I'm processing this, and I want to, just like I did with my friend, I want to jump in and start talking, and I do it oftentimes on the podcast. I jump in and I start talking because it's good, and I have something to say. But so did I really get the complete full picture of what they're saying, or have I already formulated my own thoughts and what I believe they're saying? This is where I saw where this was going, and I can complete it. I just know. No, it's important for us to let them finish talking, let them get all the way to the end. And this is what I do. I'm learning the more, and now I find myself not only wanting to do it with him as my spouse, but the idea, and I had it in my head when I was talking to the friend. I said, Shante, you need to work on this, because you keep talking at the end of her sentence, or you keep talking midway because you have ooh, 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 and you're missing all of what she's trying to say, or she has to repeat it because you're talking. And we were both doing the same thing to each other. And it was like, no, you go ahead. No, you go ahead. No, you go ahead. And then it's like, what was I getting ready to say? Yeah. And so when we're talking about becoming better listeners, it's important for us to let them finish talking. And even while you're letting them finish talking, if for some reason you don't understand when they ask you, or when that silence come in that moment, then ask them to clarify. Repeat to them, this is what I heard you say. Now, this is what I'm understanding. Is that what you're saying? Or are you saying something different? This is the moment where your listening skills have to be tuned in really well, and you can repeat to them. Because if I'm not understanding, and you do this sometimes when I'm talking to you, if I'm saying something and you're not understanding what I'm saying, you would say, help me. You would say, I heard what you said. You said blah, 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 but help me to understand. Yeah. Yeah. Or if we're talking about a specific situation, you'll say, help me to understand how what you just said fits this. Right. And in the beginning, I was like, what you mean, help me? But now I understand over time that what you're saying is, babe, I heard you. This is what you said. You repeated to me what I said, exactly how I said it. Yeah. So I heard you. I'm listening. But I'm not getting a full understanding of what you said. So now is the opportunity for the giver to clarify what's being said.
Right. Is make sure it's clear. Clarify. Make sure, okay, let them say what they say, and make sure you understand what they say, and then you can move forward in it.
Like, what are the times that you say, make this relevant to what we're talking about? And oftentimes what I know for myself, paying attention to that, is it's sometimes when it's something I'm passionate about, when it's a heightened situation or a heightened circumstance that I'm veering off about something else that I feel is relevant to this, but that's because that's passionate. I'm passionate about that. And it's like, yeah, like this, and that. And then it's like, wait a minute. What were you really talking about? And so this point, letting them finish talking, and then the receiver also having the opportunity to clarify what's being said and how it matches up to what that person is trying to share or trying to communicate or trying to let you know. This is very important in our listening, because had you not listened to the person, you wouldn't, if you're not listening, you're not going to know that, okay, you gave me a little bit extra information, or I don't really, even if it's not about the extra information, it's just that I don't understand what you're saying. If they start to give the extra information, then you're asking them to clarify how does it fit into what you're saying. But if they haven't given the extra information, they just talking, but you're not listening, then you're still going to be confused. And sometimes, because we're human beings, each one of us communicate different. I'm a communicator and I talk. I talk. I talk a lot. I do. He talks. We talk a lot. But there's even as much as we talk to each other, there's still times when he's saying something to me and I don't fully understand what he's saying. There's still times when I'm sharing or expressing something to him and he don't fully understand what I'm saying. But if he's not listening to me, if he say, well, I don't understand what you're saying. If I turn around as the giver and say, what part are you not understanding? And he say, yeah, what you just said. Then it's like, are you really even listening to me? That's why you don't understand, because you're not listening. But if he says, I don't understand, you just said the jacket was red. How does that fit in with the grass needing to be cut? Whatever it is. Or if you just, babe, you just said that you're unhappy. I don't understand why you're saying that. Because sometimes it's because you received extra information, and sometimes it's because you like, well, I thought we were good. We're talking about relationships. I thought we were good. So what do you mean you're unhappy? And give them the opportunity to clear that up about what they mean about being unhappy. Because they could be, I'm unhappy with the fact that we still living in an apartment. And you think they saying they're unhappy with the whole marriage.
They're unhappy with the way you treat them.
Yeah.
And
so we have to get
offended about
that.
It's
like, oh shit, my marriage is almost over. And all I'm saying is I want us to work on our finances to get a house. I want you to start cooking more. I'm unhappy with what's going on. I'm unhappy with the fact that we spending so much eating out. Now, that person didn't say all that, but if you don't ask them for number 3, it's really twofold. You have number 3 is on the part of the listener as well as the person that's communicating. So that's twofold. It's on the person that's giving the information as well as the person that's receiving the information. Let them finish talking, and then use this, once they finish talking, use this as an opportunity to clarify anything you didn't understand. Let me go back and clarify.
And listen, I want you guys to understand that the things that we're sharing is things that we're dealing with every day. We're working with these tools and tips we're using every day. And I have to say, we have a great marriage, we have a great relationship, we communicate real great, but even in the midst of that, we're still using tools in order to make it great. So I want to make that clear, that these things, I don't want us to beat each other up about these tips. Because this is something constant work. We have to work on this every day. Our marriage, we work on this every day. We work on communication every day. Every day, I may make a mistake. Every day, she may make a mistake. But we come together, we talk about it, and we implement things. And what happens, it makes our marriage better and better.
Yes.
Then 6 months down the line, a year down the line, it's even better. So here it is, 10 years, and then 12 years is better than it was 10 years. Then 15 years is better than it was 12 years. Then 18 years is better than it was 15 years. 20 years is better than it was 18 years. And now here we are, 22 years. And I'm like, man, it's better than it was 20 years. I take perfect out of the category, because when you say it's perfect, that means you say there's no room for improvement. And it's not like that. I realize that. I realize I'm growing every day. She's growing every day. Our thought process grow. We're reading books. We're reading. We're experiencing things in life. We're experiencing things in our career. We're experiencing things in business and finance and credit and investments. And we're experiencing these things, and it's changing the way we think. And so we have to always use these tools all the time, to remind ourselves to stay on track, to make sure we're in the same vehicle riding together. So it's something we have to work on constantly, over and over and over again. You will never master it. You have to work on it, and you have to keep it going. So on today, we're just so glad and just so happy to share our time with you on today in becoming a better listener.
You said becoming. Becoming, because the whole thing is
we still becoming.
Our entire life, we are becoming. You're better than you were last month, hopefully. You're better than you were episode number 1, you're better than you were. Your episode number 2, hopefully that as you continue.
You said hopefully. This is the thing. You said hopefully you're better. But this is the thing. If you're intentional, you can take the hope out.
That's why I said hopefully, though, because this is the thing. The reason why I said hopefully, because sometimes we hear all of the stuff that we need. Like this is, and even for us as individuals, we are sharing tools, but we have to continue to remember to actively use these tools. So I just shared that I used this tool when we had a conversation about a life change. And this is a life change for us career-wise. We had a conversation about an upcoming life change. And if I did not use these tools to say, okay, I let him finish talking. And this is what I believe he said. The moment in my head, I heard myself say, this is what I believe he said. Then the next tool was, you can't just walk around believing this is what he said. You got to clarify. So that's why I said hopefully, because this is for sometimes, and I know I've done it in the past, I just keep going with what I believe he said. Instead of saying, you have a tool for that, go back and clarify what he really said. Now that I have a tool for that, I have to actively use that tool. Each time I have to choose to go into the toolbox and say, I have a tool for this. And I'm going to use this tool to clarify. I'm going to use this tool to make sure this is what he said, or I can keep moving forward. So for those that keep moving forward, you may not see the result. And then you be like, well, they said.
But listen to this. And I just want to see, and you know what, this is not going to get edited. This isn't going to be on a podcast. You were just talking when you mentioned hope, and I had a different thought. I cut you off. And now I'm listening to you talking. And I want you to go back and rewind, and I want you to go back, and I want you guys to look at this. And it's just a simple fact of how the tools we're using, we're still working at it too. Becoming. And I'm kind of glad it happened, because this is a perfect example to let you know that Cedric and Shante, we're not perfect either.
Right.
We're not perfect either. We make mistakes. And I just want you, I think that's why
love that.
It's and I want you to rewind back, and I want you to just watch how I cut her off, because I had a thought and I said it. I cut her thought off and said it. After I just said, there's something I work on. I did it right here on the podcast, and I want it to be recorded. And I want you to go back and review that to show that we are all human. And in spite of that, she still have grace for me. And she do it to me. I still have grace for her. Why? Because we realize that we are both human beings. Yeah.
Absolutely. This is great. I love it. We want to thank you for joining us today for another episode of the Marriage Coach Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to leave a comment, and remember to turn on the notifications so that you will be notified each week when we upload a new podcast. If you're listening on iTunes, we invite you to rate this podcast if you enjoyed the information you heard on today. That helps us get the word out. We also want to invite you to head on over to our leadership podcast, Lead to Greatness, on YouTube and iTunes.
So we want to thank you for joining us again on this week. Looking forward to hanging out with you again on next week as we continue to help you take your relationship from surviving to thriving. Bye. See you next week.